The Chaser Report is recorded on Gadigal land.
Striving for mediocrity in a world of excellence. This is the Chaser Report.
Hello and welcome to the Chaser Report with Dom, without Charles. And look, we've had a series of upgrades in the past week or so. We've had an award-winning satirist in Dan Illich. We've had an academic expert in Associate Professor David Smith. But today we have a man who is, as of today, officially a real newsman. It's Mark Humphries, who debuts tonight on 7 News. Yes, in an actual news bulletin. Mark, I'm honoured that you've made time for us today.
Oh, look, I've still got time for the little people, Dom, and I'm, now that I'm at the commercial network. But yes, so tonight's segment, it's the 6:57 p.m. news is the name of the segment, and it is at 6:57 p.m. So that's it allows you to know when to either tune in or to avoid it, depending on your preference.
Very, very good. I'm assuming it will also be on social media.
Absolutely.
I strongly expect. So I'm right, I think no matter where you are in this big brown land of ours, the local 7 News will be taken over by Mark Humphries at 6:57. This is so cool. I mean, we parodied in CNN the idea of, sort of satire breaking into a real TV network, but it wasn't really done. I don't think anyone's ever done this before, Mark.
Well, that's it. I think you guys were trailblazers, and that's the thing. I think it's the generation that came up watching The Chaser that now is acting it out for real. So, tonight, 6:57 p.m. Tomorrow, the world. I think I'll start with 3 minutes, but if I can seep through the entire program, then I think we'll be onto a good thing.
This is the objective, I guess, is to progressively take up more time until the news itself is about 3 minutes, and Humphries begins at 6:33. You have to change the name of the segment.
6:57, folks.
There you go, 6:57. All right.
You don't need to watch any of the rest of the news. But I'm really looking forward to catching that audience that's tuning in for the events of Summer Bay, that home and away audience tuning in at 7. If I can give them a little bit of political satire, I think that'll be a good overlap.
That is excellent. And perhaps what you should do is, as it progresses, so you'd have the 6:57 update with yourself, then an ad break, and then I'd love it if after that there was a sort of a 7:03 hosted by you from Summer Bay, just a sort of transition. So you could do, I don't know, the entertainment news. You could tell us what's happening at the diner in Summer Bay.
I think that's absolutely right. I think, I think it's not enough. Because that's the extraordinary thing as well, is that the home and away studio is right next door to the 7 News studio. It's all shot out of the one area.
Oh my gosh, so easy to achieve.
Oh my God, I think a walk-on is absolutely on the cards.
Absolutely. All right, let's get into today's news though after this. And despite the new home at Channel 7, Mark, you are still doing what you do best. You're still doing satirical news of the week, of the day, whatever it might be. And there's been a bit of a smorgasbord this week as we get further into election mode. And rather awkward topics come up, Mark, and I'm keen to get your thoughts on it. What should former Prime Ministers do? Because it's been suggested that Malcolm Turnbull might have been a little bit undignified when he popped up on The Project on the weekend and said this.
Well, he's a thug. And look, Peter's got one tune that he plays. I mean, and it's been all his political life. And that is division and animosity, generally targeted at immigrants. It is real. I couldn't think of anyone less suited to be Prime Minister of a multicultural society like Australia.
Calling Peter Dutton a thug. Is that a compliment in Peter Dutton's world, Mark Humphries, or is it an insult?
Isn't that a sign of a good police officer? Isn't that what you're looking for in the Queensland Police Department? I don't know. But I was surprised by the pushback, because this is not the first time Turnbull has said this. He said it on Nemesis. They did the one-word game of what's one word you would use to describe Peter Dutton, and he said thug then. So I don't know what the big fuss is about now.
He said it on a commercial network, Mark. People were listening.
Of course. Sorry, you're right. That's a good lesson for me tonight. Yes. That it carries a different weight with it when you say it to, yes, that's right. Okay, that's good to know. But, because, he said it at the time, and I remember laughing watching Nemesis and hearing him say thug. And I got the sense that when Turnbull said it on The Project, it was that sort of thing where he knew that people liked that he said that. And so it was sort of like, he's like, I know what people, it's almost like it was his catchphrase. It was like, just,
he's a catchphrase comic now.
That's that. Yeah. It's, say the line. And so he gave people what they wanted. And I think it's refreshing. I've always loved and admired former PMs for their ability to slag current events and people off from the sidelines. I think it's a rich part of our democracy. democracy, and I wouldn't change it for a second.
Because it's been really interesting seeing just how heavily, I guess, the usual suspects have gone into bat against Turnbull over this. I mean, I was at a cafe just now, and I say this to explain why I happened to see the front cover of the Australian newspaper, which is something that very few people see, is the actual print front cover of the Australian newspaper on actual newsprint. And it had this graphic, at the top of the page, right under the masthead, the incredible shrinking Malcolm Turnbull. It had, I think Andrew P. Street wrote a book with a very similar name, actually.
That's
so
right.
that he should probably sue them. But it had 3 increasingly small images of Malcolm Turnbull, and the idea is that he's demeaning himself and his former PM status by getting stuck in to Peter Dutton. But this is the thing, is what are former PMs supposed to do? Malcolm Turnbull, I'm surprised we haven't had him on this podcast, actually. It's not hard to get him to talk. I mean, he's been on very many podcasts, I think. He loves chatting about the past.
I don't know if you subscribed, but he's got his own podcast, which has a new season out at the moment.
Does it? Oh, that's the one for Listener. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where he talks about leadership and stuff.
Democracy. And he's dropped 4 episodes in the last week. I'm having a fantastic time. I mean, Turnbull's very funny. I ran into him once at, it was the night after it had been announced that I was leaving 7:30. And it was the same week where, do you remember, I think his name was Yevgeny Prigozhin, who had tried to kind of launch this coup against Putin in
from
Russia.
the Wagner Group.
That's it. And then his plane fell out of a window or something like that. I can't remember.
Yes, that's right. Certainly fell out of the sky in a
Out of
giant
the
fireball.
sky,
Never
there we go,
catch a
sure.
plane with an opponent of Vladimir Putin. That's just a simple tip. Or go near a window.
And yes, and I was at the theatre, and I was at the cloakroom after the show, and Turnbull was waiting at the same time, and he turned to him and he said, Mark, I thought the death of Prigozhin would be the big news story of the week, but it appears that it's your own untimely departure. I was like, that's a good line.
Sick burn. Sick burn, Mal.
That's it. So I'm all for him weighing in on anything and everything.
But this is the thing.
Yeah.
This is the whole sort of tragedy of Turnbull, isn't it? That he goes to the theatre, and people love the Malcolm Turnbull in the leather jacket on Q&A. Or rather, people who generally voted Labor loved that version of Turnbull.
Yes.
And when he came in and there's this idea he was going to be this great centrist, before it then appeared that he did a deal with Barnaby Joyce as Nationals leader, that he simply couldn't be himself. And, his whole prime minister was essentially trying to appease people who hated him and progressively failing to do so. But he's now snapped back to the sort of urbane, witty Turnbull that we never saw when he was prime minister.
Exactly right. And, I think that, there's a responsibility of former leaders to be that way. I think, Julia Gillard, probably to her credit, has chosen to really, other than when she did the Killing season, you don't really hear Gillard weigh in on anything.
I know, it's disappointing. She's been so dignified and quiet and above the fray.
That's it.
Where's the fun in that?
I was annoyed that Tony Abbott didn't appear in Nemesis because, I absolutely think that is sort of, a part of our sort of democracy, that when a government ends, you get a call from the ABC, everyone has to sit down in a chair in front of a camera, you play these word games, and you get to slag each other off.
Yeah.
And that's the way it should be.
It goes back to Hawke Keating, doesn't it? That whole tradition.
Exactly.
It's a time-honoured tradition.
That's right. And, I still remember the great McAuliffe sketch because you had, I think it was like Labour in Power, and then you had the Howard years, and then the McAuliffe sketch, which was called the Downer Months.
That would have been very funny. No, well, they were tumultuous months, those months. But I don't know. I mean, this is the thing. Paul Keating is the best at it. You don't hear anything from Keating for months, and then suddenly this very vitriolic missive descends from Potts Point in Sydney and slags everybody off. I mean, his stuff on the submarines was absolutely vintage Keating. I mean, the man. I mean, Turnbull wishes he was as good a hater as Paul Keating. I don't know if he likes his friends and family, Paul. I'd imagine getting a Christmas card from Paul Keating.
Oh, God, that's it. Once you see that PJK letterhead, you know you're in trouble. I mean, we do need to go back to that for a moment, just that extraordinary press club appearance where it just felt like every member of the press gallery lined up to be basically shot down by Keating. We ended up Evan and I made a sketch for the Midwinter Ball that year.
Oh, yeah.
Which was, because everyone was talking about Chat GPT, and the premise of the sketch was called Chat PJK. day.
Oh, nice.
And it was some sort of thing that journalists could use that would absolutely just, whenever they were getting too big for their boots, something to just completely destroy them. And to their credit, every journalist that had been basically assassinated by Keating, participated in it. It was wonderful. But that would have been devastating. I would never have been able to, if I were one of those journalists, I would never recover from that. I
Isn't that a badge of honor? I would love it. I mean,
True.
Getting roasted by the best, the sort of Mr. Flogged by warm lettuce. I mean, it's just, because the thing is, it's not like he likes anyone. It's not as though there's something particularly bad that you've done. You've just been a person asking Paul Keating a question and getting eviscerated. I can't imagine what it was like at the breakfast table for the little Keating kids. Just sure. Dad, can I get some more milk with that or some sugar? Or like, no, you ingrate, you absolute disaster. And you just be sitting there going, that really hurts, but what a beautiful use of language.
Of course, exactly. And I think even at the breakfast table, he'd be there with his. I always love when if he comes on 7:30, he comes with notes. He's always holding pieces of paper, and so that's how I imagine him at the breakfast table. He's just waving documents at family members to chastise them.
He brings receipts. That's right. Now, in a moment, I want to talk about Kevin Rudd, because this is a sad thing. He's been silenced by his current job. We'll get into that in a second.
Oh.
None of the medical advice contained in the Chaser Report should legally be considered medical advice. The Chaser Report.
Continuing the discussion, we had an ad break then, Mark. You know all about those. In your new gig, 6:57 p.m. tonight is when you can see Mark debuting on 7 News. And look, Kevin Rudd, this is the strange thing about Kevin Rudd, is he's previously never been one to sort of gracefully take on a new job. I still can't quite believe that he was given the job of foreign minister after the whole Rudd-Gillard thing. Never happy, even though it's his favourite thing, swanning round to international conferences. I mean, this is his second chance doing something like that, and he seems to actually be enjoying this one. Him with Assange, I mean, he was absolutely loving every minute of that being on the plane. But at the same time, we lose Kevin Rudd in the media doing weird Kevinisms and slagging off other people. He's had to bite his tongue as ambassador.
Oh, yes. I mean, because of course, with Rudd, you got everything is sort of a list. That's what I miss is because my answer to that is this. One, and then he'll sort of go through and he'll make it up as he goes along. Sorry, this feels like I'm just dropping names at the moment, but I
drop away.
But Rudd, there were a few years ago we did a sketch for 7:30, which was a send up of the killing season. It was after Shorten had lost the quote unquote unlosable election, and so it was like the killing season 2, and Sarah Ferguson narrated it. John Hewson appeared in it.
He's another guy you can always get, is John Hewson. Never
right,
PM,
exactly.
but always good for a soundbite. Yeah,
that's right.
Sam Dastiari too, actually.
Of course, and we were writing the sketch, and our producer said, "Oh, we're actually interviewing Kevin Rudd tonight for something else. Do you want us to give him some? He'll be in Brisbane, but do you want us to give him some lines to read out, just in case he will do it?" And we're like, "Gosh, sure, okay." So we wrote some lines for Kevin Rudd to deliver, never thinking he would actually do it. And then, of course, not only did he read the lines that we wrote for him, which were, of course, sort of, mocking him, but he went and then improvised a bunch of lines that were even more self-deprecating and were even funnier than what we'd written. So we just ended up using most of what he said because he was so comfortable sending himself up.
Was this, did you write the words, "These Chinese rat fuckers are trying to rat fuck us"? Was that you?
I wish I
Evan?
could take,
that's great video. No, well, he does have a sense of humour in that way, but as long as he knows he's getting to be funny, like it's part of the sort of jovial Uncle Kev figure that he enjoys playing so much, which I'm sure bears very little resemblance to the real man.
Yes, I mean, I remember. I think when Rove had his most recent, the most recent version of the sort of Rove show on Channel 10, Rudd came on and played handball, and it was
the handball. That's right,
the handball thing again. Yes. So no, but I mean, Rudd at it when he lets himself go. When he kind of really rips into people.
That's the best Rudd.
That's the best Rudd, and also because he tries to make it sound like he's being respectful. He sort of does it in this very, very soft-spoken way. And, I didn't realize Julia had a degree in psychology or whatever. All that. that kind of stuff.
Seething underneath. You could just see the seething. I mean, I just admire Malcolm Turnbull for the ability to drop, and he's always been such a strong media performer, for the ability to drop the word thug when his brain would have been suggesting various phrases in Latin. He would have been wanting to reference Thucydides, and maybe he was trying to say Thucydides, and his brain cut him off at the first syllable, and the word thug just came out. I'm not sure.
That's it. I mean, I was, Morrison obviously just released his book, and which I did not. I mean, I usually read those books, but I drew the line there because most of it, I believe, involves this God character, and it's just like that's not what I want the dirt.
It's the opposite, isn't it? A sort of Christian sort of apologetics book is going to be anti-dirt. We want the real. We want to know the inner ScoMo. We want to know what happened, the Engadine story.
Of course.
By which I mean, I'm sure that incident didn't happen. I mean, when he found out the story, I want to know how angry he got.
That's right. Exactly. I want to hear the ukulele story. I want to know what it was like to spear tackle a child and, a week out from an election. Because I'm obsessed with that footage.
It's an amazing bit of footage.
It's great because he holds on to the child slightly too long, which is, I've always interpreted it as he knows that the moment he lets go of the child, he has to reckon with the fact that he's just shackled a child. As long as he's holding onto the child, he doesn't have to face the real world.
That's true. Although it was lovely of his office team to later that day give him a statue of a child saying, "I stopped these."
Well done.
Which was
very good.
There you go. Fantastic. One of my favourite moments in the Morrison leadership. Well, look, just before you go, Mark, and get back to the new satire labs there at Channel 7, can you give us a bit of a taste of what you've got in store? I gather this is going to be a bit of a different format from I mean, usually we've seen you sort of striding through a street or a park or something, nobly sort of high, or in a sort of corridor at the ABC, nobly sort of wallpapering over the lack of set and budget at the national broadcaster. Or at SBS.
Well, that was always the fun thing of, heaven forbid, any time that we would write a sketch that had lines for anyone else, if I could not get an actor in time, and that was most weeks, I would find myself, tapping on the door of the ABC accountants, people, archivists.
Yeah, worst of all, Charles was on.
That's it.
Several.
I know, yeah, repeated most weeks.
You're not doing well when you have to tap Firth. Yeah.
And just praying that this person who works in ABC archives can deliver a line. And to their credit, a lot of them could. But so this will be much less stressful for me from a production standpoint, because 7:30 we were making film trailers and fake ads and press conferences, all those sorts of things. This is me at a desk. It's sort of more traditional news parody. So I'll be at one of the.
You get a desk finally.
Desks. I get a desk. That's
Have you got a security pass as well?
I get now. I think it's funny you say that. Someone is still having to escort me in and out of the building at all times at the moment. So I don't think they're so sure.
They don't totally trust you yet. Okay, that's good. It's good to be on the edge. Very good.
That's right. And so so it'll be more that sort of setting up, throwing to clips and headlines and quotes and making some wry observations.
Very good.
So we'll see how we go.
And is it on your preferred fortnightly schedule, or are we doing it a bit more often? What's the plan? Or is it just today for the time being?
After that. It is weekly. It is, yes, I've doubled my workload. So yes, every Friday. I won't say every Friday. It could just be this Friday. And that's, you never hear
but the
from
current plan, as of the time of recording, is for Mark Humphries to appear on every Channel 7 station. No matter what the news is that precedes it, the local news will end.
That's right.
Mark Humphries will arrive at 6:57 p.m. on a Friday night, and presumably on social media shortly thereafter. Well, it's going to be a wild ride. It's great to see a satirist. Can I just say, being hired by a commercial network, because that happens.
It's extraordinary.
Was the last one Sean McAuliffe at Channel 9, probably?
Well, exactly. With McAuliffe tonight, I mean, the story I always love about that Sean tells is how, because McAuliffe Tonight was a variety show, and he had come off the back of doing 3 seasons of the McAuliffe program on the ABC, and Nine apparently said to him, "So you'll do interviews," which is fine because obviously you did interviews on the McAuliffe program, so no concerns there. And Sean was sort of like, "Yeah, but didn't you notice that all of the interviews were with Wayne Hope?"
No, they didn't. They didn't at all. That's right. Well, look, it's been a fascinating trend. Respected satirists going to commercial stations and lasting for a very short period of time. I think also Denton's time at Channel 7.
A proud tradition.
But we'll see if you can outlast them. Look, it's great to see them trying something new. It's great to see you actually doing what you do and getting the chance to actually make more stuff. So that's the important thing is you're back in business. But it all begins tonight. You can say whenever it ends, possibly at 7:01 p.m. tonight, you were there for Mark Humphries' debut on Channel 7. Thank you very much for making the time for your old pals here at the Chaser Report. We'll catch you another time.
Thank you, Dom. I'm sure you'll be seeing a lot more of me.
When it's all over, whatever that may be, we'll still be here wanting to chat to you. Our gear is from Rode. We're part of the Iconoclast Network, and we'll catch you next week.